Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Charlamagne the God. We are the Breakfast Club. We got our co-host with us this morning, Miss Jess Hilarious.
That's right.
And we have our special guest, first time here.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us, Laverne Cox. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. I am so excited to be at the Breakfast Club. You have become such an important space for the culture on so many different levels, politically and in terms of music. And it's just lovely to be here in all of my multitudes.
We're happy to have you here.
Yeah.
Why did you think you were banned?
Yeah, who lied and said you was
you were banned?
Well, that's what Jason said. That's what Jason said. So we had reached out. Last year when my Barbie came out. I was like, it would be great to come onto the Breakfast Club and talk about the Laverne Cox Barbie. I'm the first trans person to have a Barbie created by Mattel, and I thought it would be great.
Block your face, so we just hold it with a block, because.
And I think this audience is really valuable, and I think this audience. I was talking to Jason about this, and I think there's. I don't like to say there's white media and black media, but like a lot of the work that I've done, the audiences have been diverse, but it's been a majority white audience. I'm working at E now, and it's definitely a diverse audience there, but this is a black audience.
Well, we're happy to have you.
And I'm black, and I love being black. Absolutely. And this black excellence is, I'm doing things out here, and I think that it's important for this audience to know that.
Talk to us about this outfit, because it's giving black superhero.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for asking.
That's motorcycle. That's like motorcycle superhero.
This is Manfred Terry Mugler. It's vintage. It's from his fall 1989 Buick Winter collection. Obviously inspired by motorcycles, inspired by cars. Terry Mugler actually has an exhibit at Brooklyn Museum right now. If people like this, there's something in the exhibit that's similar to this. I collect vintage Terry Mugler. So yes, I'm glad you mentioned it. You have to kind of see the whole.
Stand up for them.
Sounds too rich for my blood.
Listen, this is one of my favorite pieces. Thank you for asking. I collect Mugler. I'm obsessed in a good way, I think. Maybe unhealthy.
They should be giving you free stuff, I hope.
Not for real. Because she gave a whole lesson just now. I was like, what? On the where? I know that's right.
Megan Thee Stallion has a line in Plan B, Mugler suits in my meetings. And she, in the video, she's wearing all Mugler. Now, Casey Cadwallader is the executive director of Mugler now. Mr. Mugler died, who founded the company. But it's run beautifully now by Casey.
Laverne, do you talk over here? Because he just knows Target and Walmart t-shirts. He knows
I act my wage.
Get into Mugler. The girls are wearing Mugler. The boys are wearing Mugler. The non-binary people are wearing Mugler. Feel the fantasy, honey. Get into it. Learn it.
But y'all ain't gonna ever get on the bike though. Y'all just gonna wear the Mugler. Y'all ain't going.
I am not getting on a bike. Years ago, when I was a waitress, I met this guy. I used to work at coffee shop in Union Square. You remember coffee shop in Union Square?
Oh yeah, I do remember the coffee shop.
I used to be a waitress there, and I met this guy, and like, you know, when I was a waitress, I was young, in my 20s, so I would meet guys at work, and met the dude, and he waited for me to get off from work, and he wanted to go hang out, and he had a motorcycle, and I was like, sweetie, I'm not getting on this motorcycle.
Yeah.
I was like, you can pay for me for a cab, and then we can meet at the diner.
Right.
He got me a taxi, and we met at the diner.
You followed his motorcycle there.
I was not getting on that motorcycle. I had no interest. Now, for a movie role, I'll do almost anything for a movie role. So if someone wants to pay me, I'll get on a motorcycle.
Okay.
Yeah, if anyone wants to pay me.
That's when so many of us were introduced to you when you were acting on Orange is the New Black.
Yes.
I told you when I first met you at the iHeart Music Festival, and you was backstage, and I came up to you and I was like, yo, I'm a fan, because I used to, I still love Orange is the New Black.
Thank you.
So acting is what you really, really want to do? Is that your passion?
It absolutely is, and I'm still acting. Last year, a lot of people saw me in Inventing Anna, which was a huge show on Netflix. I played Casey Duke in that. I have a guest spot in something that I can't talk about yet, but it's really cool. And we're prepping to do a show with Norman Lear, the legendary Norman Lear, and I'll talk over here as well, called Clean Slate. George Wallace, the legendary comedian, plays my dad. It's set in my hometown of Mobile, Alabama. It's a comedy, and it's about this woman who goes back home and tries to reconnect with her dad after many years of being away. So we start shooting that in Savannah like next month. Oh my God.
I don't think this era ready for Norman Lear comedy. Norman Lear is the Jeffersons and Good Times.
Well,
Like, I don't think they're ready.
One
All
Day
in
at
the
a Time.
Family.
One Day at a Time did really well, and he has new shows. Norman is 100 years old, and he's still producing shows, and people are watching.
Yeah. So as long as they're watching, we're gonna keep
As
creating.
long as they're
right?
watching. Yeah, Norman is amazing. He is getting to know him, and just being in a room with him when we pitched the show to him was just iconic. We sat in the room with him for like 90 minutes, and after the meeting, he said, he was 96 at the time. He said, I learned more about life in this last hour that I should have known that I didn't know, and I'm so grateful. And we started working together on pitching this show, and it took years, and now here we are.
I want to go back for people that don't know. This
Yes.
is Laverne Cox's first time on the Breakfast Club.
Yes.
Amazing.
So how did you get into acting? What made you want to act? What got you into that mind frame as a kid? Break it down.
I've always been a performer. So I started out as a dancer, and during PE, so I'm 50 years old. So back in the day.
Damn.
Right.
I mean, but that's a good. That's
Black
good.
don't
That's
crack,
really
yes.
good. Yeah.
So back in the day, there was PE, physical education, and during PE, I would always dance, and I would have music in my head, and I would have characters in my head, and I would express these characters through movement. And so I started studying dance in 3rd grade, but I always knew I wanted to act, that I would transition to acting. And when I got to college, I was a dance major at Marymount Manhattan College and started acting there. I did my first play there. I did a lot of stuff in the theater department there, and just that was in the 90s. I moved to New York in 1993. So I've been acting like since college, and did my first movie my senior year at Marymount in 1996.
So you knew that's what you wanted to do.
I always knew, but then I finally accepted being trans when I was in 1998 and started transitioning, and I was like, well, there aren't any trans actors, so I don't know if I can't really be an actor and be trans. And so I went to fashion school for 3 semesters. I went to FIT, and then I was like, I don't really want to do this. I love fashion, but I don't want to do it. And then I did a few more movies, just auditioned and got a few independent films, and then I started training seriously with this woman named Susan Batson, who is an iconic acting coach. She's trained Oprah and Juliette Binoche and Jamie Foxx, everybody. And she has a great studio here in New York, and I got really serious about acting, and I just went for it. And it took years and years and years, but finally, basically, 20 years after I moved to New York, I got my big break in Orange Is the New Black.
How was that? How was auditioning for that? Because
Wow.
you know, at first, I'm sure people didn't necessarily say, I don't know if Laverne fits this, or how difficult was that being turned down?
I mean, it was years of no's. I mean, the reason why it took 20 years is that there were no roles for me. So at Susan's studio, she would have industry nights, and I would audition for casting directors and agents, and they'd be like, you're very talented, but there's no roles for you. You're trans. It's like, maybe you should move to LA. And so it was constantly that. And every once in a while, a trans something or drag thing would come up. And a lot of times in the beginning when I was auditioning, it would say drag queen, but I would just go in, and they didn't know the difference between drag and trans, and I would book or I wouldn't book. And so for years, there just weren't roles for me. And so when the Orange Is the New Black audition came along, I actually was going to stop acting. I turned 40 that year. So this was 11 years ago. It was 2012. I turned 40. The big break hadn't happened. I was like, well, girl, you're 40, you're Black, you're trans. Who do you think you're kidding, thinking you can do this? And I was studying for my GRE to go to grad school. I was in student loan debt. It was a mess, girl. I was in rent arrears. Like, I was on a payment plan to avoid eviction from my apartment.
I love that you looked at Envy and said,
it's a girl, right?
Yeah.
When I say I love that, that
Girl
warms my
is,
heart.
girl is gender neutral. So girl is gender neutral. Like a lot of people say dude and it's gender neutral. Girl is gender neutral for me. So everybody's girl.
So I'm girl all the time.
He calls me girl all the time. So it is what it is.
But the great thing about when the Orange audition had happened is that even though it was a struggle, I had been in acting class every week because I loved it. And this is what I say to people: if you want to be an actor and you don't love it, you should do something else, because you're going to be too old, too young, too short, too thin, too trans, too Black, too white. And so all the rejection, I kept loving it. And so I kept, even though I kind of gave up hope, I kept going to class because I love acting. And so when the audition came along, I did one audition, I booked it, and then this juicy role came along and this beautiful writing, and I was prepared. I was ready because I had trained. I had done independent films for free, student films for free. I did everything I could to get experience. And so when this opportunity came, I was ready. And I love that Oprah says there's no such thing as luck. Luck is only when preparation meets opportunity. And when my opportunity came, I was prepared, and I'm still here, and I still love what I do. And I get to do so many different things now. I love that I'm an actor, but I also get to host red carpets, and I have an interview show.
That's amazing. That's what I wanted to ask you. Do you like one more than the other? Do you like being in that live red carpet space more than you do like what? Because then we get to see your personality. We get to see like how you bond with other celebrities and like certain questions and stuff that you ask. Like, do you like being in that?
I love it. I didn't think I would. When E approached me, I was like, well, I'd hosted their countdown show in 2020 and had a lot of fun doing it. And then they asked me to, to be their new red carpet host. And I was like, do I want to do this? And will people forget that I act? And acting has always been even though I've always done a lot of different things, I know that I'm an actor first. And that's what I prioritize. And that's why people even care about me. Yeah. But I love it. I love it. And I love it because we get to have fun on the red carpet. I love the fashion piece of it. And we laugh, but we also can get to have space. At the Grammys recently, I interviewed Machine Gun Kelly, and he came to the carpet really vulnerable. It was intense. I was like, what's going on here? It was a different energy than I'm used to.
He cried, I think, right?
And he was really emotional. He found out in the car on the way there that he had lost the Grammy, and he was planning to win, and had built up. Basically, he said that he had built up like all of this. I'm going to prove people wrong, and I'm going to be valid now because I've won this Grammy, and he didn't win it, and he actually had the courage to be vulnerable and admit that. And on live television, and it was a beautiful, raw moment. And I love being able to hold space for that. I have a show with E called If We're Being Honest, that's on Peacock. And it's an interview show, and I get to hold space for complexity, for people's humanity. We laugh, we cry. I had this great interview with Joe Coy where we talked about him kind of repeating the pattern that his father sort of, walked out on him. And then he talks in his book about how he kind of wasn't there for his kid and how he repeated that pattern, but then how he interrupted it. And he was in tears thinking about this. There's this beautiful moment in his book where he talks about he was in conflict with his ex-wife, who is a father of his child, and he goes and she's broken open a piggy bank, and she's looking for change to buy food, and he's like, what are you doing? She's like, I don't have enough money to buy food for your child. And he saw it in that moment. They had been fighting. He saw in this moment, and he broke down, and he's like, I'm never going to let you go through this again. And it's such a powerful moment in the book. And I asked him about that moment. And it was a moment where he had been repeating the pattern of his absentee father, but he broke that pattern in that moment. And this is the shit I love. And this is the stuff I love, where we can have real moments to interrupt patterns of historical trauma. You talk about that all the time. I love moments when we can have revelations and understand something new about ourselves, with the guests I'm speaking with, and then hopefully the audience. And so I love being an actor, but I feel like it's the same thing as an actor. As an actor, what we do is we mine the depths of who we are as human beings and hopefully create empathy for these characters so that people can learn about themselves. Ultimately, people don't watch television to, watch you. They watch to see themselves, to learn about themselves. And so in all the work that I get to do, it's all really about that. It's a space of healing. You're always sending healing energy to everyone. And we need a lot of healing in this world. And that's what my job, I feel, is as an artist and as a public person, is to create these spaces of healing.
That's why I encourage therapy so much, because I feel like it interrupts those patterns that you're talking about.
Good therapy. I've been in therapy since 2000 for 23 years. Sometimes people are like, does it not work? Why are you still in it for 23 years?
And you may just still need it. Things are happening every day.
It's a process. It's not like... Healing isn't like I got it and it's done. When the pandemic happened in 2020, stuff hit me that I didn't even, and I've been in therapy obviously at that point for 20 years, but the voices, when you're by yourself all the time, those voices that tell you that you're not enough, that they come back. And you had to do a different level of work. But what's so exciting about the work that I've done in therapy over the years is that I can hold space in an interview for complexity and for someone being raw. I can hold space in my romantic relationships, in my friendships, that love is in my life right now and I can show up for it. You know, I was talking to a dear friend of mine and I was asking her about her love life and she was like, I need to be in therapy before I try to be in another relationship. She was like, I think the last guy was a good guy, but I didn't know how to handle it. And I think so often this good thing might come to us romantically, professionally, and we might not be able to receive it. Do you remember that moment? This is such an iconic moment for me when Oprah was ending her talk show and she interviewed Iyanla Vanzant. Do we remember this moment? We should go and watch this moment.
When they healed?
When they had their healing moment. And Oprah was like, did you understand? I was sat in the audience and I had you on stage and I won't go into the whole history of it, but they had a falling out. And Oprah was like, did you not understand that I trusted you on my show to be on, be on stage on my show? And Iyanla said, I couldn't receive it. She was like, I was broken, I'm ghetto, I was this. And then she said it like 4 times and she was almost in tears. I couldn't receive it. And the last time she said, I couldn't receive it, Oprah was like, I get it. I get it. So we have to get ourselves ready to receive the blessings that the universe has for us, waiting for us. And therapy is a great way to do that. I think therapy, for people are struggling with addiction. I think if you can't afford therapy, there are 12-step programs out there for people to go that are free. And it's not just drugs or alcohol. There's codependency, 12 steps. There's Debtors Anonymous. Girl, go and get your help. Girl, you can heal.
It's the gateway to healing. I wanted to ask you about the red carpet thing because I wanted to ask you, what did you learn in the moment with Will and Jada? Like after you received the backlash and everything, what did you learn?
Oy vey. To be really brutally honest, I learned a few things. I learned that the world was not ready for the evolved relationship that they were presenting us. Because when I just jokingly said, we're looking for, more entanglements. I love Red Table Talk. I love Dismiss. And people thought I was being shady. And I talked to Jada afterwards. She was fine. She thought it was funny. But the world interpreted it as mess. The world saw so much of what they had put out about their relationship in an open, honest way. I feel like their intention was for us to heal, for us to see a different way to do relationships that wasn't like this traditional thing. And the world made it into mess, and that the world wasn't ready. That it was constant. The world was like wanting to make it into something that they weren't giving us. And it also reminded me that when you make your relationship public, it becomes entertainment for people. That's right. And it's not, they're not real people. And so I'm going to keep my stuff private. So it was that piece of the entertainment piece, but it's also like, the world isn't ready for this evolved relationship that they've presented us with. And that made me sad. And I think it means that we just have more work to do around letting go of traditional heteronormative monogamous ideas about what a relationship should look like. I think everyone can do relationships on their own terms and should do relationships on their own terms. And I think they're doing that, and the people just don't get it.
How did you deal with it? With all the social media and the backlash, and because social media can be a nasty place. They gave you a lot of smoke.
There was, oh my God, I watched one video, I won't say who I watched, and the person went in and I was like, I'm not watching anything else. So, and I just didn't.
Was it Jess?
Yo, look, relax. We're not even doing. Girl, relax.
Did you make a video too?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
But
I just stopped. Right. I just stopped. Right. You don't. This has happened. Luckily, this has happened before. I remember when I did Rocky Horror Picture Show, and when I was cast in that, and there was just an outrage and an uproar. I just stopped watching. I stopped reading. I just didn't engage with it at all. And I think that's what I have to do. I have to just not engage with it and understand that it's not about me. And I think it's hard to feel misunderstood, though, and to feel that piece is very difficult. But I have to remind myself who I am. I have to remind myself what my intentions are and not engage. But I also think it's tricky for me because I also think one needs to be open for feedback. One needs to be open to receive criticism when it's in good faith. So that's what I have to balance, because I'm not above reproach and I've made mistakes. My prayer today, my prayer every day is, God, give me permission to do this imperfectly and allow me to be of service. So it's not going to be perfect. And I'm a perfectionist in a bad way. So I have to let go of that and hopefully I'll be of service. And so I have to be able to balance like getting critique from trusted sources that elevates me and makes me better, and holding myself accountable and being held accountable, right? We all have to do that. But then not allowing trolls and people who don't have the best of intentions and aren't operating in good faith, not letting that in.
Yeah, I'm a
being able to
comedian
distinguish.
myself, so I go through that still to this day, and that's what I wanted to also ask you too. So being a comedian, we often speak on nothing is off limits. You know what
Absolutely.
I'm saying? Like we speak on things that people in these days and times may take a total different way that we're trying to, put it out there. Do you think that because a comedian has a joke about LGBT that they're homophobic? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Because I got a lot of jokes about the LGBT, but I have a lot of jokes about the straight people too.
Yeah.
Everybody.
I think it's really complicated. I interviewed Cameron Esposito on my show, if we're being honest, and Cameron's a non-binary stand-up comic, and Cameron thinks you should be able to joke about anything.
Right.
But Cameron also said that a lot of comedians who have problems, who are saying they're always being canceled and they aren't allowed to joke anymore, aren't used to getting feedback. Cameron said, since I've stepped on a stage, Cameron's assigned female at birth, it's non-binary. Cameron is like, ever since I stepped on a stage as a stand-up, I've been getting feedback. And Cameron said, you've probably been getting feedback since you stepped on the public stage. And these people, I think they're not used to getting feedback. And so feedback, so there's that piece. And I think too that one can say something or do something that may be homophobic or racist and not be racist, right? But there's a difference between I am, like a statement of Brene Brown distinguishes between shame and guilt is shame is I am a mistake and guilt is I made a mistake, right? So I think that's an important distinction to make, that someone can unknowingly, right, say something or do something that's transphobic and not be transphobic. I was on set for a show that I was doing many years ago, and one of my coworkers, who I adore and we're still friends to this day, said the T word that ends with a Y, and I wasn't upset by it, but I was like, I understood in that moment that my coworker didn't understand that a lot of trans people would take that as a slur.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Right, yeah.
See?
Yeah.
You didn't know. And a lot of people don't know. And so I was like, girl, just so you know, I'm cool, but a lot of trans folks, if you said that word, would have a problem. And she was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. She sent me flowers. I was like, girl, it's not that serious.
Didn't know. And
she just didn't know. And I think we need to be able to give people grace when they don't know and give them space to evolve. And I'm not language police either.
Right.
I'm not language police either, but I think that transphobia exists.
Right.
And there are many comics who say really transphobic things. I don't necessarily believe they are transphobic, but what they're doing is transphobic, is phobic. So it's just like something, just like with racism, right? Like I could think somebody can do something racist or say something racist, not necessarily intending it in a certain way. There are words that we might not even know are problematic.
Right.
And we just don't know. But it is racist, it is transphobic. So a thing can be a thing, and we can call a thing. And for me, it's about people evolving, giving people space to evolve. I'm not into like canceling people, and cancel culture doesn't really.
How does it make you?
I love what you said about comedians though, because there is a difference between feedback and backlash. And I think a lot of comedians think they're getting backlash, and comedians thrive off of that. But actual feedback, like, is to me, is
there's one particularly who's thriving off of it that I can think of. He loves
Mr. Ciofalo?
He loves someone. They seem to love the transphobia, transphobic comic.
Because I wonder how much of it is actual feedback as opposed to backlash. Like, there are people who will take the time to teach. You know, like I salute like my man David Johns. He'll take the time to teach. But a lot of times they don't feel like they're teaching. They're just upset.
Yeah.
And I think it's a piece of like not being comfortable getting feedback or wanting to. I mean, for you as a comic, I mean, I mean, have you been criticized or critiqued for some of your LGBTQ?
Most definitely. But
how did that make you feel?
It made me. I was mad. I was very upset because I'm like, how can you say I'm homophobic because of this and because of that? And then it comes the thing of like, if you say, oh, yo, you know, my brother gay, or I got a gay best friend, then they still put you in a box like,
well, that's like saying some of my best friends are black.
Right.
Yeah.
And you get misgendered a lot, Jess, which I hate.
What?
You get misgendered a lot.
People, yeah. People always, you know, say I was born a man and all that.
And I hate that.
And
how does that make you feel? How does it make you feel when people misgender you as a non-trans woman?
To be honest with you, I really do not get upset. I know I don't get upset. I honestly have never got upset. I actually started putting it in my jokes, but it's other people that will get upset for me.
A lot of black women get upset about that.
Yeah, I'm gonna be totally honest with you. No, I didn't get upset for that. I got upset that I called this guy. He was LGBT. He called me the T word that ended with a Y, and I called him the F word. And I felt like. But it was blew up because I said I felt like, all right, slur for slur, and he's like, oh, you know, everybody's like, yo, you're not a part of the community, you can't say that. Well, it gives him the right to tell me that I'm a T word. Like, you can't do that.
Did he know that you were?
He was being smart. He knew exactly that I was a woman. That, you know, that I'm born a woman, am a woman. But like, I got mad that I didn't get mad that he even called me that. I got upset because it's like, yo, you called me that and I can't call you this? Like, I don't like that. I just can't. I just couldn't get with that. Like, yo, you hit me below the belt, and you weren't saying it because you really thought that. You said that because you knew that
trying to insult
you. Trying to insult you.
Something like, oh yeah.
There's I think was it one of the City Girls who just has a lyric about like pretty like transgender. Like it shouldn't be an insult to say that someone, I mean, look at me.
That's how he tried. Right, look at you.
It shouldn't be an insult to say that someone looks trans. Trans is beautiful.
But right.
Trans is trans is beautiful.
But let's not like really like not look at how it was brought to, like it was brought to me like he was being smart. It wasn't brought to, oh, you are a pretty trans woman.
I think
it wasn't
too,
like that.
What's deep to me about that, just historically, I love looking at history. There is a history in America, and I think this is why it's tricky for a lot of black women when just the existence of trans women, particularly black trans women, but then when non-trans women are called trans or say they look trans, there's a whole history of discounting the womanhood of black women in the United States of America. When Sojourner Truth declared Ain't I a Woman in 1851 in Ohio, she did that in the context of a system that said if you are black, then you're a man, and if you're a woman, you're a white woman. And so she was invisibilized in that system, and there is a history of that in the United States. And black women have different builds and different body shapes, and it's beautiful, but there's that history that we have to reckon with. And I think that like so much of transphobia in America and all over the world, a lot of it in the black community, I think is also about just colonialism in general and the impact of like racism on our community, the historic emasculation of black men. Like there's been literally during when black men were lynched, they would their genitals were cut off. And there's that whole history that we're trying to sort of reckon with as Americans that's deeply painful. And trans people like represent that, I think, for some Black folks, that history, that trauma. And then I think I have always believed if you have a problem with somebody else being themselves, it's something inside of you that's not quite right, and that's why our healing journey is so important. I think like I say on my podcast that like I think 50% is like, okay, there are systems in place. Racism is a system, transphobia is a system. We're all like raised in these systems and are affected and internalize these things that we have to unlearn if we want to decolonize our minds and liberate ourselves. But what's my 50%? I am responsible ultimately for my life. I'm responsible for how I feel. I've never been a victim.
And your own healing.
And I'm responsible for my own healing.
Even if you didn't cause your own trauma.
I'm responsible for my healing as an adult. And I think too, when in that moment using that F slur, you were mad.
I was upset. Very
that
angry.
Reaction for me, I've decided many years ago. I had an incident in a gay club, and I was co-hosting an event, and I used the F word. I said, "Use some loud F words." This was years ago. After the show, these two Black gay men came up to me and read me for filth, and I'm there with my friend Ari, may he rest in peace. And I'm like, "No, we're reclaiming that word, and I'm trans," and they were like, not having it. And I talked to my friend Ari, and I was self-righteous. I was like, we're reclaiming that word. We're taking the power away from that word. And Ari was like, absolutely. Then I talked to my brother. My brother is identifies as a practicing homosexual. He doesn't like the word gay. He thinks it's a white bourgeois construct, and he prefers the idea of practiced orientation.
Y'all twins,
anyway,
right?
We're twins.
Okay.
And I talked to my brother about it, and I expected my brother to be like, yeah, they were crazy and they were wrong. And my brother was like, that's not your word to reclaim. And I was like, but no. And it's like, that's not your word to reclaim. And then he said it a third time, and then I started crying. Because I had to admit that I said something that was hurtful. I saw the hurt in their eyes. And I immediately became defensive. And that defensiveness, I get, but like that uncomfortability, that moment of sitting with like, I hurt somebody and I didn't intend to, but I hurt somebody, and that felt awful.
So that's how it was for me when the whole community, what felt like the whole community was, because like that's like half of my fan base, LGBT. Like what? Like
my community's come hard for me too, and it's painful.
And then sometimes it's like, yo, I know I didn't mean that. I didn't mean to hurt all of y'all, or with that word.
Trying to hurt that one person.
I'm trying to hurt that one person because he was trying, and only because he was trying to hurt me. Not even, I think this way about all, like, nah. And it was like, it was kind of hard to come back from. I was the first social media influencer to be canceled, and then by such a big community of people who supported me and was with me up until that point.
What's the healing for you? Because I think for me, like, is there? Would I want to be in a moment where I let someone have me go out of character to insult them? That's what I think. But for you, has there been healing around that? Has there been? Because I think what we don't see a lot of, for me, when someone is quote unquote canceled, is we don't see the evolution of what they've learned and how they've learned it, right? Like, what did I learn from this situation? Like, how did I hold myself accountable? What have I learned about it? That's what I think. This is what people need when someone's been through the mill. Like, what have I learned from it? What have you?
My apology was back then, because it was, that was the thing where you did something to get canceled, you must apologize, and then they called my apology backhanded. Like I said before, and Laverne, I'm always think like this. I'm like, look, if you want me to respect you, you must respect me. You get what I'm saying? Like, you must. You are in this community. You can be whatever you want. It don't bother me if you are LGBTQ. It don't matter. You will respect me as who I am, and I'm gonna respect you as who you are. You could have said anything. Oh, you ugly. You da-da-da-da. You called me that because that was gonna get a reaction. Like, you called me a slur. That if somebody said that to you, you hate it. Like, you can't. That's an unspoken word. You can't. You said it yourself. Like, other transgender can't even spew that word. Like, you know what I'm saying? You said the F word. Them two men, they ain't like that. Like, what? You're a part of the community. You still can't say it. You have to respect me if you want me to respect you. Like, so when I apologized to the community, I said, I meant what I said to him. I said, man, y'all want me to respect. It starts with respect. No matter if you know the person or not. Everybody a human being. You're a human being first. That's what you are first.
I hear you.
Everything else after. But that's how I'm going to always be. But yeah.
I hear you. May I offer, I can't make anybody do anything.
Absolutely.
I can't make anybody respect me. I actually, like, so much of my healing work around relationships is I can't make somebody love me. I can't make somebody treat me right. I can't make somebody see me. I can take myself out of the situation. I can put myself in a situation where someone can see me, can respect me, and is able to. Yeah. Some people aren't able to respect us because they don't respect themselves.
That's real.
Right? So I can't make somebody do something. And so like the whole you will respect me thing, I'm like, people, they might not. You know, I feel like I come with nothing but love and I work my ass off, and there's so many people who are only going to see my transness and never see the excellence, see the hard work, see the talent, and I can't make them do that. I can't make them do that.
Do you ever get tired of being I don't want to say the face, but the person that everybody comes to when there's a joke that people don't like, or when somebody says something in a lyric, or
the spokesperson,
movie, like the spokesperson? Do you get tired of that?
I'm not anymore. There's so many more of us, and what I love about my career and what I'm really proud of is that I'm the first openly trans person to be nominated for an acting Emmy, but I'm not the last. I'm the first trans person to be on the cover of Time magazine, but I'm not the last. There's so many more trans people with the platform now. What I am frustrated by with these legislative attacks against trans people now is that people aren't talking to enough trans people. There's like lots of pundits and people who like talk about trans issues without a trans person in sight. There used to be a time, I'm old enough, where, you know, people would talk about trans issues and actually bring on trans people to talk. What I've learned is I can't speak on every issue because it's exhausting. This stuff is also traumatizing. Transphobia is traumatizing. Racism is traumatizing. Misogyny is traumatizing, and I can't live in that space. Right. I can't live in that space all the time. And you know, that 2020 taught me that too. Girl, trauma on top of trauma. So sometimes I have to go away and not speak on those things. And I'm so blessed that I get to have a public platform where I don't talk about being trans at all, where I get to go on the red carpet and I talk about artists and their work. And I go on my show and I talk about artists and their work. And so it can't always be about that. I love being trans. Trans is beautiful. I always say I'm not beautiful despite my big hands, my big feet, my wide shoulders, my deep voice. I'm beautiful because of those things that make me noticeably trans. But I get to occupy spaces where my transness is not the only thing. So I'm honored that I've been chosen, I think, by a power greater than myself to be a vessel for all of the visibility that trans people have now. And it used to feel like a lot of pressure, and I used to feel this obligation to speak up about everything. And now I pray to God that, like, I'd say thank you, but I'm like, can I wear this more lightly and with more joy? And I'm getting there. I'm getting there by staying in the love. I started ending my emails like, God, 20 years ago, stay in the love, to remind myself and my fellow artists that we got into this because we love it, not because the business part of being an artist is treacherous, but I love it. And I think love is always the solution. When I talked to Cornel West on my podcast, he said a lovely thing to me, that I'm in the tradition of love warriors that we've had in the Black community from, you know, time memoriam. Like he said, you know, that, you know, they hated us, but we have taught people how to love as Black folks. We consistently do that. And like that, for me, is what it's all about. It's about existing and inhabiting love and putting that out there and hopefully getting that back. And I think that is the only thing, with all of the vitriol and policies that are being passed that are attacking trans people, they're attacking, like, you know, AP, African American studies, and just all these things that we have to. Education is important. I like to remind people that, and everyone knows this, but it's just good to be reminded that they didn't want slaves to read. They did not want if you learned to read as a slave, you would be beaten, you would be killed. They did not want us to be educated. And right now you have a governor of Florida, a governor of Texas who wants, they're banning books. They don't want you to learn about things. And so in this moment, like as Black people, as marginalized people, we need to educate ourselves. We need to learn critical thinking to on the internet to figure out what's misinformation and what's not. That education and learning, it's like it's a practice of freedom. Education has always been freedom for Black folks, and it is now as well, and it's extended to trans people. Trans people, we've always been here. I like to remind folks that trans folks have existed in indigenous cultures all over the world. In Hawaii, they had Mahu. In India, Hijra, and Africa, they're they wouldn't be called trans people now, but with colonialism,
with dual spirits, I think they
two spirits in Native American cultures. In Angola, there was Nzinga, Queen Nzinga had her I forget the name of her sort of non-binary kind of folks in her court. So we've existed throughout time, trans folks and people who didn't exist within the binary. And this gender binary thing, it's a white colonial Western thing, right? So like, let's educate ourselves about that and understand that when we're being transphobic and we're enforcing this like binary idea of man and woman, we're like doing some colonial shit. We're doing some like white imperialist stuff, right? Let's like, if we look at indigenous cultures and look at the way other people have practiced things, trans and or gender nonconforming people held sacred spaces in India. You wouldn't have a wedding or a christening without the presence of a hijra to bless that child or bless that wedding. And trans folks have been spiritual leaders throughout history.
Absolutely. I did want to ask,
yes,
since we're talking about it, when it comes to gender identity, should we let kids wait until they are older to make that decision? Because I know that's a big
It is a big conversation right now. And what I say to that is that if you are not a trans child or have a parent or a parent of a child who thinks they might be trans, it's none of your business. I think what has been happening with the GOP specifically now and all the like, we have to protect kids in sports, kids this, kids that. It's never been about kids. It's always been about stigmatizing trans people. There's a law in Oklahoma that was just introduced that would ban gender affirming care up until the age of 26. This tells me what I've always known. That's never been about kids. It's about making trans people not exist. Donald Trump just made a speech saying we need to ban gender affirming care for everybody. He may have misspoken. He misspeaks a lot, but he said we need to ban it for everybody. That is the plan. So I think when we are talking about someone else's access to health care or bodily autonomy, it's nobody else's business, whether they're a child or an adult. The American Academy for Pediatrics, the American Medical Association, the Endocrine Society have a set of protocols, and they're all well respected for treating trans kids. And that should be handled by doctors, not legislators, not people who are not involved. It's nobody's business. And I think when we have these conversations about trans people and we focus on transition, body, surgery, when you're a Supreme Court confirmation hearing and they're talking about, mutilating children or, castrating children, that language objectifies trans people and dehumanizes us. This whole conversation has been deeply dehumanizing. And when you can dehumanize people, you can take away their rights. And that is exactly what they're doing right now. They've done a really good job of dehumanizing trans people, LGBTQ plus people in general. And now they're taking away our rights, and no one's really doing anything about it. So our work is to rehumanize everybody, to rehumanize each other. When we dehumanize somebody else, we dehumanize ourselves. When I interviewed Dr. Joy DeGruy, who coined the term post-traumatic slave syndrome on my podcast, she said that like the healing is not just for formerly enslaved people, it's also for the people who enslaved folks. When they enslaved us, they were dehumanizing themselves. When you discriminate against other people, you dehumanized yourself. When you allowed yourself to, come out of character and respond to that dude who said that to you, that was, you were not human. You were not giving yourself the dignity, the regality, the royalty, the humanity that you deserve to be above that in that moment. And for many years, a trans elder said to me, it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to.
No, I get it. Do you feel like he was wrong?
Absolutely.
All right. I just want to know.
Absolutely.
Because for a while, it was so one-sided. Like, it's like, no,
Absolutely.
he can say that because he's a part of it. I'm like, nah, he can't. And he can say whatever you want to say.
Yeah,
I'm
I feel
not
like-
ever saying that. I'm just saying, like,
But at the end of the day, one of my favorite
both wrong.
one of my
I
favorite
feel like
things
Jeff's
I've heard.
response was very human, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very human.
Yeah.
Very human. And I'm very human, but like, and we're human beings. But when we want to evolve, when we want to grow spiritually, how do we then proceed?
Respond.
And one of my favorite things that I heard from a therapist is what other people say about me is none of my business.
That's right.
Because if I'm in this constant space of like, you must respect me, we see it on reality shows all the time. You got to respect me, and then I'm fighting with somebody, and I'm fighting, and I'm like coming out of character. It's like, this is not why God put me here. God did not put me here to be reactive to somebody in some low vibrational place, some low vibrational energy. God put me here to be anointed, to live in the anointed space. So I'm not coming out of character because someone's calling me something. People call me stuff all the time. My whole life, people have been calling me stuff.
You know, I'm glad you're here because we can even help Jess unpack another little bit of trauma that she went through. Remember, Jess, I saw you say this on the Don't Call Me White Girl podcast.
Yeah.
There was a guy hollering at you.
Flew her out.
And you was
Trying
into
to fly,
him.
yeah, trying to fly you out, right?
I wasn't into him.
I thought you said you was into
I
him.
didn't.
You said you was trying to fly you out.
Excuse me.
What happened?
Well,
Okay,
well,
I need
Look, don't
be
pay
kind
attention.
rewind.
Tell her the story,
My girls
Jess.
is lying on me.
Be kind rewind.
No. Okay, there was this guy. He's known. Everybody know him. He's a singer.
A famous.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
I didn't know a singer part either.
Yeah, I'm
I thought
talking
he was an
about
athlete.
from
Wow,
back
okay,
in
so
the
athletes
days.
Just try to holler at me too, girl.
The ones that will act like they didn't. But yeah, he DM'd me and he was like, he wanted me to, F him.
Have sex with him.
Have sex with him.
Yeah.
But he wanted me to bend him over because
He wanted you to strap on.
he thought I had that already.
Yes.
Came like that.
He
Like,
thought that you were a
it was-
trans woman who had not
and he
had bottom surgery.
And he really wanted this experience, and he didn't know he hit me
And
once
he's known,
or
girl,
twice.
after the
He
show,
hit
you
me
just tell me who it is.
3
I might know
times.
who it is, girl.
Look, and she might not even be shocked. But the thing is,
These things don't surprise me,
this-
no.
And I was like, wow, like
And this was
I'm
traumatizing
not-
for you?
No, I just
Yes,
was
it
like,
was.
no, it wasn't. It was not. Look, so
Charlamagne, you're a mess.
So, bro, what I tell you, it
You're a
don't,
mess.
Because
Girl,
it ain't
you're a
like he
mess.
was trying to insult me. He just literally thought that I was,
He thought
so
you were
I
trans, and so
wasn't-
he was really wanting.
I
and
wasn't
so,
upset at all.
Okay.
When I seen the money, I was like, dang, I wish I did have one of those because he was
Exactly.
He was
She
offering money.
wanted it.
What?
She was
Like,
like,
he
she
was
was
like,
like,
I
I
thought
could
it-
be
He
a
also
trans
thought you
woman
were a
too?
sex
So it was
worker.
a fetish. Yes.
He
It
thought
was
you were a
like
sex worker. He
fetish.
thought you were trans.
Yes.
There's people always often assume that trans
Yeah.
people are sex workers. We're not all sex workers. There's
Right.
other things we can do, and this is not to
Right.
demean sex
Right.
work. We
For sure.
we're sex workers should be decriminalized and all that. Wow.
But and when I told him, and look, and when I was like, okay, so no, I am, woman. He was like, oh, damn. All right, well, see you. Like, it was like, well, you can still fly me out for the money if you. But no, he didn't want
wanted
that.
something
He
very
wanted what
specific, yeah.
Very specific. And he wasn't disrespectful after. He wasn't, and I wasn't about to put that up, none of that. But he was really like, I wouldn't say disappointed, but it was like, oh,
Sounds like he was disappointed.
damn, you not?
Yeah.
All right,
He was
well,
disappointed.
No, I
Go
think that
ahead.
like we have to,
damn.
it's tricky to talk about sex with trans folks because we're often sexualized,
Yeah.
right? And so to have an adult conversation about sex and sexuality
Right.
and not. Again, to elevate the humanity of trans people. This is my work to elevate the humanity of trans people. But there are straight identified men who enjoy being pegged, having a
Right.
woman strap on,
Right.
who enjoy a trans woman who might, give them that pleasure, and they still identify as straight because she's still a woman, right? So I think that like a more evolved conversation that a lot of people aren't ready for is that a sex act does not define your sexuality. A sex act does not define your sexuality. So you can have a sex act that involves, him wanting to do what he wants to do.
Not all cases, though, right?
Right.
No, it's nobody can tell you who you are.
Okay.
Nobody can tell you who you are. So sexuality exists on a spectrum. And I think it's like really problematic when we find out that someone enjoys something sexually, and then we start telling them that they are gay, or start telling them of their sexuality. It is not our business to tell somebody their sexuality. If they're in the closet, if they're in denial, that's actually not our business either, right? So there's too much of that. I think we can allow, and people are doing all sorts of things sexually, and I think it's all wonderful. I think it's great. Live your, as long as it's consensual,
right?
And everybody is an adult, and it's great. And I think that like, it's an advanced concept, but separating a sex act from someone's sexuality, I think is something that's very evolved that I would love for people to be able to do.
So Charlamagne does a sex act
I just love the fact that there's potentially
wait a minute. He
I
does
said
a
if
sex
Charlamagne
act
does a sex
to
act to me,
you?
that doesn't necessarily mean he's gay. That's what she's saying. It's
Well, he
that's
is,
that's ridiculous.
but not
I just love
regular other people.
I just love the fact that a trans woman potentially took one of Jess's prospects. That's what I.
What?
That's what I appreciate.
He found the girl.
Yeah,
who
yeah,
was doing it.
That's right, because he wanted me.
Don't talk you into
He ain't want
He
you.
wanted me. He wanted me. He didn't know that I was. He still want me to this day.
You could have been like, girl, I could strap on. Did you offer that?
Yes, because the money, it was so much money.
How much money was it?
How much was it?
$50,000.
Oh, girl.
So I was like, what? And
so he must still be
listen,
doing
There's a man
shows.
offering $50,000.
Yes.
The girls.
He must be popular.
Okay, you need to tell the girls who this is. The sex worker girls out there. There is a man, a singer, offering $50,000.
Yes, and they better give me a piece of that.
How old is he? How old is he? How old is he?
Oh, he's over 50.
Oh.
He's like, this was like somebody we listened to like back in this day.
Hey, stop! Don't do that. You're not
Somebody
gonna do that
still
to
listening.
nobody.
We still listening to them right now.
$50,000. The girls. A lot of girls can use that.
And so I did, I had to talk it over with my best
Yo,
friend.
what's wrong with you?
It's so good.
It's gone,
that, like,
Jess.
it's
It's
so
gone.
beautiful
It's
to
gone.
be a
I asked him,
black.
"Can I
It's
strap
so
on?"
beautiful to be a black trans woman
gone.
and
He
not
said no.
need that money. It's
gone,
so beautiful
Jess.
to make my own money.
Can we talk about this,
And
please?
yes, Barbie.
Yes, can we get the Barbie?
Can we?
No,
Can we
it's
talk
gone.
about
The money's
Barbie in the
gone.
same
Laverne,
conversation that we were talking about this?
Because Laverne, I'm
gone.
talking to you
Will
later.
Mattel be okay with
gone.
us having that conversation and then talking
Let's
about this?
woosah, woosah,
no.
woosah, woosah.
I'm sorry, Mattel.
I want to know, how did this doll come about? Was this a dream of yours?
It
Or how did it happen?
So
Tell
when
us.
I found out Ava DuVernay had a doll, I was like, I want a doll too. And I said to my manager, Paul, I was like, I want a Barbie. And like, I don't know if he reached out, but like several years later, Mattel reached out and said, we'd love to do a Barbie. We're doing a tribute collection. And I said, absolutely. It's like, it was a dream. And it was... I've talked a lot about this when the Barbie came out, but when I was a kid, I wanted a Barbie, and my mom did not allow me to play with Barbie. It was forbidden. And when I was around 30 and I was in therapy, like starting therapy, it was like mid-2000s, I was in therapy and I told that story to my therapist, and my therapist said, it's never too late to have a happy childhood. You can reparent that inner child. I think you should go and buy yourself a Barbie.
Did you?
And play with her. I absolutely did. I bought a Barbie. I played with her, I dressed her, and it was healing. And then I told my mom about it. And then my mom started sending me Barbies. This always makes me want to cry.
Oh, really?
Then my mom started sending me Barbies. God, this.
Oh, that's sweet.
I'm not going to cry on the Breakfast Club.
It's really sweet.
And
Black
she started
Barbies?
sending me black Barbies. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
She started sending me black Barbies, and it was just this wonderful, we all have a little kid inside of us that needs attention, that needs healing. And I've been taking really good care of my inner child, and Barbie has been a huge part of that. And so what was so exciting for me about having my own Barbie is that other people can have this space of whatever age you are to like reparent your inner child and have and know that you can be trans or non-binary and that like you exist.
Can we have this? Can we
Call me
love to keep it in here.
They're absolutely.
We'd love
I
to
brought
keep
it for
it up here.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And when did you forgive your mom? I'm
hold
sorry.
on.
When did you forgive your mom? Because there had to be some resentment, the fact that you wanted to play with Barbie. She wouldn't let you. But you also have to understand that at that time,
This was a while. Like this is probably like, God, around that same time, 2005, 2006. So I don't know how old I was. I was like 30, early to mid 30s. And I just realized I needed to, when we hold on to resentment, it's like taking poison and expecting it to hurt, hurt someone else. That old proverb. And so I just realized she did the best she could.
Gotcha. That's right.
With what she had. And my mom is an incredible human being. She put herself through college. She got a master's degree. She was a teacher. She's retired. Now, my mother took care of 2 kids. My mother's an incredible human being. Yeah. And she did the best she could and with what she had. And I turned out pretty well. And I love myself now. And that's, my mom is responsible for that. So yeah, I forgave my mom a long time ago.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Call me stupid, because when I first heard about the doll, representation matters, we know that. But how are you supposed to know this is a transgender doll?
Well, my face is on the back. It says Laverne Cox, and then my picture's on the back. So I'm trans. So, I mean, yeah. So it's technically, it's not a trans Barbie, but it's the first Barbie to be made in the image of a trans person.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha.
yeah, it's a Barbie doll.
Gotcha.
Oh, and then if you read this on the back, you literally can,
Oh, it's okay. Got you.
No, it's literally.
Well, her hair needs to be styled, though.
No,
she needs
we appreciate you for joining us.
No, we are.
And I have a question. I'm sure Charlamagne and Jess will feel the same. If there's ever something that we have to call upon and ask a question, we want you to be a friend of the room where we can call you if you're in LA and say, hey, Laverne, there's this situation. What's your opinion? So sometimes we might not get your representation because it is what it is.
It's exhausting, and don't call her.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
You can call me.
It's a fine line,
You can call me. There's certain things I don't comment on. Like there's certain comedians who do their thing, and I don't like to speak their names because I also don't want to be. For me, it's important to be critical of concepts and ideologies and mindsets, but love people. Yeah. And the media is very quick to put you in Laverne Cox fights this person, or Laverne Cox calls out this person, then all of a sudden I'm feuding with someone. I am not here to feud with anybody. I'm not here to be in conflict with another famous person. Don't pit me against anybody. So that, I can talk about concepts and ideas, but I'm very careful not to be. People still try to pit me against folks, but I don't do it. And so I'm very careful about that. So I'll speak about, an idea or a concept or or something specific. If we want to talk about why something's transphobic, we can break some stuff down.
Right. That's a different example.
That's a different conversation.
I don't want you to give no examples.
in Dubai, and people were upset. And we were saying there's so many states here that necessarily don't respect that
anti-LGBTQ.
Right. So it was so what's the difference? So we didn't understand it. So that would be well, what were your thoughts on that?
I'm in the beehive, hardcore.
You're going to see Beyonce.
Yeah.
No matter where she at.
Multiple times. Multiple times, girl. Please. And Beyonce actually gave me my first fashion campaign. Ivy Park, Fall Winter 2017. My first fashion campaign was from Beyonce.
No, that's right.
Let Beyonce make her money. Let Beyonce make her money. And then, honestly, it's, what is it? It's February, whatever. It's mid-February. And this year alone, over 300 pieces of anti-trans and LGBTQ legislation have been introduced in state legislatures all over the country. Over 300 pieces. So everybody who's saying that there's, there's a lot of states here in the United States that Beyonce's going to be performing in. Are you just not going to go to the concert there? Because in Florida, in Oklahoma, in Texas, in Tennessee, girl, Arizona, girl, Utah.
I feel like certain communities need to experience joy, right? So you got to find those pockets of joy when you can. What perfect place in a Beyonce concert?
And just because the government is discriminatory does not necessarily mean that the people there are right. We people live under oppressive regimes, and it doesn't mean that people are bad, right? It just means the government is
you are
effed up.
So right, because when I went to London and I was like, I was like, I ain't want to talk about the Queen, and one of the promoters was like, man, and I can't say what he said, and I was like, whoa, so y'all don't care? And he was like, nah, we don't care.
It depends on who you talk to, because
it depends.
Yeah,
You're right, but like you said, the politics and the government. Sometimes their people don't even be worrying about what they got, what they got going on. They agree with their people instead of who runs them.
This is my last question. I guess it's more like even though a statement. I guess the challenge I have as a personality is I often wonder what's more impactful, right? Because you're Laverne Cox to me. You're not transgender actress Laverne Cox. You're Laverne Cox. You got a lot of things going on. So I wonder what's more powerful. Just having you on a platform like this and just having a conversation about everything that you're doing, or allowing you to speak to your your transness? Because to me, I could take it or leave it either way.
I can do both. Find a girl who can do both. That for me, it's like just living my life as I'm 50 years old, living my life, I worked in restaurants in New York for 20 years. I did not go to the restaurant talking about my transness when I was working at a coffee shop. I just went to the restaurant and I was myself, and some people knew I was trans, some people didn't. But they got to know me as a human being. And that was the most powerful thing ever. When I'm on sets, I'm not like educating people or doing diversity and inclusion training. I'm doing my job. And showing up and doing me has been the best way. So I think it's like, it's about our humanity. Yes, I'm trans, but like I'm so much more than that. And every trans person is so much more than that. And this is just our humanity. Don't reduce us to transitions or surgery. You know, I think it can be really valuable for other trans people to see, you know, trans folks transition online, but like, so often people think it's all about that, and it's not. It's about a life lived. It's like, yes, I love my body. I'm happy with where I'm at, with being done with transition, whatever that means. But there's so much more to life than like that. Like that, it's the issue is when people don't want to let trans people exist, when they're murdering us, when they're misgendering us, when they don't want to let us be in school and use our right pronouns, and discrimination, like trying to ban us from homeless shelters and employment. You know, our unemployment rate is 3 times the national average. 78% of trans kids are bullied in schools. That's the problem. Us existing is not the problem. People's insecurity. You know, Leontine Price, my idol, Black opera singer, would say, you know, racism is never the problem of the Black artist. It's everybody else's problem. So the work really is everybody else getting on board. You know, and people have a lot of feelings about that. I get it. I understand. People are frustrated. I have to use this pronoun now, and like the non-binary thing, people are confused about. Even other trans people have difficulty with it, and I had difficulty with it and pronouns for a while. But like, what I think it's about is understanding, particularly as Black folks, is that Black people were second-class citizens for a really long time in the United States. In a lot of ways, we still are. And this whole inclusivity thing is about acknowledging that we're here, that we have something to contribute, and that we should have equal access and equity. Same thing with trans people. We've always been here. We've been second-class citizens. And so if we're going to acknowledge that these folks are here, let's just like respect them and let them be. And it shouldn't affect you. It really shouldn't. And I think that like, some men who get upset, like I feel like a lot of men who get upset about trans women, it's like they want to be misogynist and they want to like holler at a girl and like know that she was assigned female at birth, and they get upset. And it's like, that's not my problem. That's not my problem that if you're attracted to me. It's not like my problem that you swipe right on me on a dating app. Like it just unmatch and move on. It's like people get so and then I think
not my fault I made your dick jump.
Right. You know what I'm saying?
Damn. And for some women, people who are assigned female at birth and who are woman identified, who have issues with trans, we're not here to take your spot. We're not here to like we can all there's room enough for all of us. Oh, no, you know, a lot of this is about scarcity, and there's enough for everyone, right? And it's like we're not a threat. We just want to exist. We want to just live our lives. Yeah, you know.
Sure. Well, Laverne Cox, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for joining us. Y'all check out If We're Being Honest with Laverne Cox on Peacock.
Yes. And Oscar's red carpet.
That's right, March 12th. That's right, March 12th. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you. Always. And don't be a stranger.
Thank you.
It's The Breakfast Club. It's Laverne Cox.